In Ames, Iowa, the weather may not have been ice cold the last couple of weeks, but the shooting from the men's basketball team has. Curtis Joens, the team's leading scorer, has had multiple nights recently that are all well below his standard, and it doesn't help matters any that Milan Momcilovic has been out with a hand injury, allowing defenses to put more pressure on other shooters. The upside? Well, over the last couple of weeks, there hasn't really been one, considering that the home winning streak currently sits at 0, and the bulk of the season's losses have been taken recently. But in a more forward looking sense, slumps don't last forever, and the Cyclones get a pair of more favorable matchups in the next week. First against TCU tomorrow, with the whole world watching the college game day pregame before wondering where the game itself is broadcast because it got relegated to ESPN Plus. Yeah, nice planning there, ESPN. And following that up on Tuesday with a trip to UCF, the team that plays far and away the worst defense in the Big 12. Today is Friday, February 7th. I'm Matt Menson, and welcome to the Cornfield Sports Pod. On your right, but in a totally different room, my co-host, Blake Peterson.
Heck yeah. You did forget to mention that with the game being on ESPN Plus, it is open to anyone to watch. Like, you don't have to be subscribed to ESPN Plus. It's also on Disney Plus as well.
Yeah, but you're not going to find it channel surfing.
Well, you can't find a channel. Exactly. Nice planning.
Yeah, like seriously, ESPN, how did you get to this one? Real smooth.
Yeah, it's like the whole world on College Game Day, and then like, oh, Iowa State's about to play.
And then it's nowhere to be found on the actual linear broadcast schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Seriously,
So
who thought this up?
I know. I just hope they can plug it enough on TV that's on the ESPN app.
Yeah, that's absolutely asinine the way they decided they were going to do this.
Mm-hmm. But
Probably some
before we get
marketing ploy to try to drive more ESPN Plus subscriptions.
Probably. But before we get to the slump of men's basketball, we got some great news coming from the Forbidden City. Didn't think you'd hear that. So, Iowa State tennis wins in the Forbidden City, 4-3, clinching the Cyhawk win for tennis, as well as the 2024-25 Cyhawk series win to make it 13-8. So, great win for the States, taking the series trophy back to Ames. So with that, we've won in football in Kinnick Stadium. We won in volleyball in Hilton, men's and women's cross country like in the NCAA's, men's basketball at the Carver Library Arena, and just now tennis with gymnastics and softball still to be played.
So you're telling me
For soft,
that in this academic year, we have won more in the Forbidden City against them than they have against us. That's crazy.
Yay!
That's
Nah,
crazy.
the team out east is kind of in a slump against us right now.
Evidently.
Hmm
What have they beaten us in? Women's
Uh,
basketball,
women's basketball, wrestling,
wrestling.
uh, the sport that doesn't exist.
So we're winning at 13-6. What's the last one?
Okay. Last one I can't remember. Swimming. I think it was swimming.
Swimming. Oh yeah, you're right. You're right. They did beat us in that.
Yep. Softball will play the team out east twice, but one of them will count towards the series.
It doesn't matter. We already clinched. Um,
So
but
that's a little on the Cyhawk series. Glad to take that back to Ames.
but let's get into some analysis here from the
Oh
last
boy.
week. As painful as this is going to be, Blake, the Purple Kitties came to Ames last Saturday, fully expecting to get the brakes blown off of them. Both fan bases thought this was going to be an absolute smattering. Um, but not the smattering that actually ended up happening.
Are you talking about the UNI Panthers? No, I'm just kidding. No, this was beyond painful.
It was kind of like watching a car crash happen over and over and over again, like you're stuck in a time loop.
Hmm.
This Nothing went right for us during this game, which is I don't know what this is. This was after a week on last week's show, how I was talking about how we had every advantage. And goodness, we didn't get nothing right in this game.
Did Caleb Love curse us from Arizona?
I don't know. Maybe my theory about that man being a demon had something to it.
Yeah. Um, I will say so proud of the student turnouts, like with the whiteouts, with the cameras too. Uh,
That's the
some
good
some
news
of our
about this game.
some of our guys bring like the older vintage cameras that don't even work. Uh,
That's the good
during the
news for this game, guys.
yeah
That's the
during
good news.
the first media timeouts, like the student section like had all their phones lit up.
But we let them have it.
Oh yeah,
We let them have it, all right.
that's what I'm proud of. Like after this game,
Yeah, but what's definitely not to be proud of is how our team played, how bad our defense was, how bad our offense was, um, how much the K State bench was allowed to get away with.
that's crazy. Like especially towards the end.
Oh my goodness. I mean, over the course of the game, it seemed like every minute or so we were screaming to the refs about some bench violation that K State was in the process of committing. There was at points during the game where they had 6 players on the floor because their bench was leaking so far out. They had guys sitting on the back of the bench in their warm-ups that were fully on the floor. So that happened multiple times. Should have been technicals on all of them. They had assistant coaches going out in front of the coach's box. That's supposed to be a technical. At one point, we had coaches all the way at half court, which as soon as they touch the half court line, that's supposed to be an ejection. Goodness gracious! And then the very end of the game, we got K State players leaking out off of the floor towards the student section, being held back by event security. That, I mean, honestly, it looked like they were trying to get a brawl going with the student section, but I mean, in terms of sportsmanship, just absolutely horrendous. Bragging about the officials going their way. What was his last name? Number 11 for K State. I mean, seriously.
I'll look it up right now.
I mean, if that guy's got any talent, flopping is at the top of the list. Because he got away with about 3 of them over the course of the game. Did the whole flopping gesture toward the student section, too. Like, he knew he was doing it and getting away with it and bragging about it.
Number 10 on Kansas State.
11.
11. Brendan Hausen, however you say his last name. Hausen, yeah.
Yep. That was the guy. I have never in my life seen a more poor sport, at least in person, at Hilton Coliseum. What an atrocious display. If that's supposed to represent K-State, I'm glad I'm not affiliated with K-State. Yeah, just an absolute disaster all the way around for Iowa State. The one thing we did better than them was sportsmanship, and that even wasn't all that great because, I mean, everything else about this game was going so horrendously bad that TJ got teed up, and I mean, rightfully so. But
he wanted to make a
He wanted to make a statement, and he sure did it.
Yep. The crowd was definitely
behind him.
Yeah, definitely.
We had TJ's back
Mm-hmm.
because he had every right to be as mad as he was.
But
Um,
I will say at that point, like that's when my heart just broke.
yeah, I
Like
mean the
I I experienced heartbreak at that point.
the uh,
I'm like, this can't be happening.
the one official, Greg, what's his name? I don't remember what his last name is. He has a reputation for being one of the worst officials in the sport, and he was calling that game. So, if that lends any idea toward how this game was going, then that you get the picture. Um, and the 19-point loss to an unranked K State team by the at the time number 3 ranked AP team marks the only home loss to an unranked team by a top 5 team in poll history.
Where did you get that? Stop trying to hurt me.
It's true.
Hmm.
It's true. So you, based on that particular metric anyway, um, you can make the argument that this is one of the ugliest losses of any team all time.
I did try to keep spirits high, like towards the end of this game. It's like we're gonna be okay.
You tried. Most of us
I
gave
did.
up.
I know.
There was there was nothing to be happy about leaving this game. I mean, we knew going into this game that Hilton was going to be mad because of last year's cheating allegations. So yeah, we knew Hilton Coliseum was going to be a hornet's nest. We didn't know it would be like this.
This was the angriest I've ever seen Hilton. Uh,
Did you just like read my tweet from after the game? I
ang
tweeted those
angriest.
exact words.
You tweet those exact words.
Those
Well,
exact words.
well, it's common knowledge, but I kind of compare it to last year's BYU game too. And no,
Hilton
not
was
just
not
B.
this mad against BYU last year. No, no, not even close.
I shouldn't have said BYU. I should have said Cyhawk Wrestling last year. That's
That might be close.
that's
Um,
closer.
Either that or when Tyrese Hunter was at Texas and they returned. But
Oh
I
yes.
still don't think that holds a candle to just how ticked Hilton Coliseum was 6 days ago.
Mhm.
That was it was something to behold, that's for sure.
Yes.
Um, and the fans were certainly no happier, especially on our end of the arena. When you got K State players leaking off the floor and they're 5 feet in front of you, taunting you about the officials going their way to your face. Um, my goodness. And to think that people are saying they're fostering some kind of a good culture down there. They got one of the most atrocious cultures in all of college
Not with
sports.
Jerome Tang. Absolutely not with Jerome Tang.
I mean, this is the culture that as soon as Tang has his own recruits that completely fall apart as a program, and the only teams that they're having success against is us. Since the cheating scandal, they're actually 2-1 against us now, which is terrible considering how badly they're doing against everybody else. Um, they had the Naquan Tomlin incident last year where Dick Linton, the university president, kicked him off the team. They threw a bag at Coleman Hawkins to suck, and they accuse ISU of cheating. Their fan base accuses ISU of other things. Jerome Tang calls Taman Lipsey the biggest flopper in the league. And now you've got players that are mere steps away from starting a fight with students and openly bragging about how the officials are favoring them. So, yeah. Real nice culture that y'all got down there in Manhattan. Real nice. I would say let's talk about something better, but the the game that we played at Fog Allen was only marginally better. I guess it was, in some sense, better than how badly the K-State game went, but that's only because it really can't get much worse. It still didn't go good. The officiating was nothing to complain about in the Kansas game.
Yeah,
they did.
I will say
they did a fine job.
I will say with the officiating for the Kansas game,
maybe a couple mistakes here and there. I thought it actually favored us over the course of the game as a whole.
Yep, you got to shout out Jeffrey Anderson, the high knees ref.
He's comical.
I never thought I'd see him in an Iowa State game. He's usually a Big Ten ref, like for what I've seen.
He's comical.
Yep. About him, I think it was the Wisconsin game that he officiated. He got in the way of.
I'm sure he's officiated multiple Wisconsin games.
Yeah, he got in the way of a contested layup, and I can't remember who they were playing, but the coach and the bench were like, what was that? He's like, my bad. So yes, he's very comical.
Did that count as a blocked shot for him? Like, did he get a stat for that?
Best sixth man in the Big Ten.
It's a freaking ref. Ref show.
Ref show. Oh boy. All right, back to Kansas. I got a little off track.
Kansas. We lost this one by a margin of error, or a margin of victory, or margin of loss, or whatever you want to call it. Less than the 19-point loss to K-State. Woo! Big win. No, it's not.
Let's go.
Instead of losing by 19, we only lost by, drumroll please, 17. But it was on the road, so yeah.
I didn't have too much high expectations with this game being in the fog.
Dude, nobody had high expectations for this game. This was a game where Kansas is on a down year. Their record is still worse than Iowa State's.
And they're still ranked 16.
Which is a down year for them. And went into this game, both teams' fan bases just absolutely crashing out. Nobody thought they were going to win this game. Nobody thought anybody was going to win this game. Except the Kansas men's basketball program itself. I guess they decided they were going to win this game because that's what ended up happening. So that's Iowa State's first 3-game losing streak in 2 years.
2 years with Jaren Holmes and those guys.
Yep. So been a minute there. It was close for the first 8-10 minutes of the game. ISU led by as much as 4.
And then Kansas decided to go on a run, and we decided to get ice cold, like you said.
We didn't make a run at any point in this game, which is crazy because the way most of these games are is, especially in the second half, if it's close, that's where we put it away. If we're behind, that's where we overtake. But usually there's the mentality if we're in a tight game, if we're in a rough situation, we can go, hey, at some point we've got a run in us. Not in this game. There was no run in us. So that's
just the biggest problem just being our shooting percentage. Like almost the entire game is like the first half was like 24%, 1 from 12 from 3.
The common thread of this slump is that there's no Milan Momcilovic, and the defense is not spreading out because of that. We are missing a major shooting threat.
Yep. Milan was practicing before the Kansas game, but like he was telling everyone, obviously he didn't play. So they are eyeballing Cincinnati for him to return, like the Cincinnati game.
That is next 3 games out, correct?
Should be. Yes, it is.
So we gotta manage TCU and UCF before that.
Mm-hmm.
UCF shouldn't be horribly difficult. We'll get to that in a little bit. But yeah, They're not wanting to rush anything. Obviously, that's in his best interest, but with a couple of favorable matchups here that we should be able to win anyway, that's probably the best team decision as well. So that looks like a win-win to me, which also should be our record for the next two games is win-win. Because we should be able to turn this thing around against a TCU team that is less than stellar. But back to the Kansas game here. A couple other things to go over. Iowa State was just slow in this game from shooting. We were creating open shots, but we were not hitting them. The ball just refused to go through the rim, and that was a major problem for us. In the first half, we shot 24% from the field. We were 1 for 12 from 3. We kept pulling the trigger, expecting, at some point the ball's got to go in, right? And it just wouldn't. Not a good place. But when you're having a rough shooting night and you're doing everything else right, not a whole lot else you can do, because it didn't matter whether we were pulling up from downtown or whether we were going at the boards at point blank range and trying to get shots off the glass. Nothing, just nothing would go in for us. And Kansas shot well. Credit to them for that. Monday night, Kansas was the better team. Allen Fieldhouse is famous for how bad its home whistle is. They certainly didn't need it, and they didn't have it either. If anything, like I said earlier, I think I was shocked to see it, but the whistle probably favored us. The majority of the foul calls, I believe, were against Kansas and not against us. We were getting to the line frequently, but we couldn't hit our free throws, which I feel like I say that at least once every week on this show. But that's... Yeah, it wasn't great. The second half wasn't a lot better. Well, the second half was a lot better, but it was still bad, which just tells you how bad the first half was.
Mm-hmm. We went from 24 shooting percentage to 39%. And
increasing your shooting percentage 15%, and it still sucks.
Yep. And unfortunately, with the slump of Curtis Joens too, like he was 1 for 7 from 3 this game, and 3 for 21 the past 3 games.
So the rate's been holding steady, but at some point the dam has got to break, and he's got to get that shot to fall again, because we know he can.
Mm-hmm. And he's had most of this week to get back into rhythm too.
Well, practice doesn't necessarily get you back into a live action rhythm. Only games can do that.
Exactly.
But a live game against a middle-of-the-road defense in TCU, followed up by the single worst defense in the Big 12 in UCF, that might be the change in pace of play that we need to get him back on track before we get Milan back on the court, spread things out, get more open opportunities, and then hopefully we're back to Curtis Joens just lighting it up. So, but yeah, that means that in the meantime, we need to put together a couple of wins, and that needs to start tomorrow. Home against TCU with College Game Day present. Somehow we got a lot of College Game Day over the top 10 matchup between Auburn and Florida. Don't ask me how that happened, but I'll take it.
Part of me kind of thinks they're saving the big ones for later. I mean, they might have another chance to get to Florida.
Right, but why not go with your marquee? Why not do a marquee matchup every week? You can. So I'm not quite sure what ESPN's decision making folks are thinking up there. Um, it doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense to me. Maybe they have a plan that rational people don't think of, but being rational is not always ESPN's strong suit. We're talking about the same company that hires Stephen A. So, um, but yeah, the college game day. It'll be taped pregame. It'll be like happening during warm up, so y'all see the players warming up during the show.
Yeah, you won't have a lot of student crowd in the picture. They're obviously going to pan the camera over there. So with the placement of the actual table, like where they're talking, the
It'll be the
table's going to
court
be
in the
right in
background.
front of the band.
It'll be the court that's in the background. How funny would it be if the band starts playing during the pregame and it's just blasting into the microphones and you can't
Well,
hardly hear the game day guys?
Christian character's probably going to know not to play like while they're live.
Oh, but it'd be so funny if he did.
It would be so funny.
It'd
It's
be
like
hilarious.
the people on the table's like, oh, here goes the band.
Yeah, listen to Iowa State fights on College Game Day. That's what we're gonna do. This will be the earliest that most of the people have been in Hilton Coliseum. I know there are a handful of folks that have been in there earlier for other things. Um,
Like me tomorrow.
yeah, he'll be in there early. But I mean, staff, Cyclones TV type people, they've been in there for early for these 11 a.m. games when you've got
Hmm.
a 8 a.m. call time. And the students are getting let in at 8:30. So some of y'all have been in there earlier already. I've been in there earlier in the day for wrestling. Um, but when for tournaments that start at like 9 or 10, and gotta be there for weigh-ins, and they do that at like 7 or 7:30 or whatever. Um, but yeah, for most of the students there, this will be the earliest that they've ever walked in the doors of Hilton Coliseum. So that'll be a different experience.
Hmm.
Have Hilton rocking before half of Ames has even woke up. And how Iowa State students are. I mean, we're gonna be loud for College Game Day. They're gonna love us. So, um, now in terms of the game itself, um, TCU is halfway comparable to ISU. Our defenses are quasi identical. Um, if you look at the numbers between the defenses across the season, the largest discrepancy is that TCU allows roughly 3 more assists per game than we do. Um, all of the rest of the discrepancies are essentially insignificant. We're talking about defenses that are basically the same in terms of their effectiveness. Um, and the offense is a completely different story. ISU has been in a slump recently, but that slump is still not as bad as TCU's offense is generally, because TCU has the worst offense in the Big 12, and it's down there. They
Now that we're
are
on this,
they're not
now that we're on
good
this
at anything on
subject,
the offensive end of the floor. Go ahead.
now that we're on this subject, I just got this email from Athletics.
Oh boy.
If the Cyclones force 12 turnovers, like with their offense, if the Cyclones force 12 turnovers during Saturday's game, you win a free starry. This was sent to the students.
Interesting.
So so I think it's a trend that goes on for TCU, Colorado, and BYU. But
I'm
that's
guessing
kind of
since
funny.
we're I'm
That's
guessing
kind of
since
funny
we're
that they
like
have
a
that.
does it have something to do with us being like a Pepsi school type of a sponsorship, something
Yep,
like that?
yep. It's a
Okay,
it's a Pepsi thing.
gotcha. Um,
But I just thought that was kind of funny.
because I was like, Starry, they couldn't drop for Sprite. Oh, never mind. We're a Pepsi school. Of course, you're not gonna do Sprite. Um, but yeah. Anyway, TCU's offense sucks. They're really bad. ISU has been in a slump, and our offense is still better. Um, if you take our numbers over the course of the entire season, we are the second best offense in the Big 12. TCU's offense is hot garbage the entire season.
So we're going up against a bad offense and a bad defense in this next
a
next
bad
week.
offense and a mid defense in one game, and then a mid offense and an absolutely atrocious defense on Tuesday, if you can even call it a defense. But TCU, they don't get that many shots up. They're last in the league in shots attempted. And when they do, they don't make very many of them either, because not only are they last in shots attempted, they're last in shooting percentage. They do not make very many shots. To be last in both of those categories is a death knell for a team's offense. They are not effective at all on that end of the floor. So what's this tell me? We should be able to dictate pace. We should be able to dictate pace pretty well. We need to be able to create rhythms, look for transition opportunities, especially because since they have the worst offense, they're going to turn the ball over. When they turn the ball over, we need to try to make those turnovers live ball turnovers, get down the floor and score in transition. Make them play our style of ball. Because if we speed them up, that means they're only going to turn it over more. Teams that are bad on offense, you want to speed them up. Because then they just make errors faster and faster and faster. So, at some point, the shooting slump's going to end. We'll get back to form. Best case scenario, that happens tomorrow. Somewhere around 11 a.m. because that's when tip-off is. For some stupid reason, College Game Day is here, but we're on ESPN+. The math doesn't math there, but it is what it is. It'll probably kill viewership. But you're going to be watching it from Hilton Coliseum anyway, so who cares where it's streaming? Save your internet bandwidth for the Cornfield Sports Pod. And then you can also save that internet bandwidth for the Tuesday game at UCF, unless you're planning on flying down to Orlando or something on a Tuesday night.
Cyclones are going to show up in Florida. They did for the Pop-Tarts Bowl. We're doing it here.
We do show up in those southern states. I guess our retiree fan base likes to travel. I guess we got plenty of alumni, that retire and then they move to Florida. So I guess they'll show up. I would expect this game to be a little bit closer than the last time we played UCF. Just because we put up 108 points on them the last time we played them, and that doesn't really seem like a very repeatable kind of thing.
Especially on the road either.
Right. Now, granted, I don't expect them to have a very large home court advantage, considering we do travel well, especially to southern states. Last year when we played at UCF, I think we might have had more people there than they did. We've already done that once this year in Tempe, so don't think we can't do it again. It's just not quite the insanity of Hilton Coliseum, so it might have more of a neutral court vibe than anything else. But when it comes to how bad UCF is, their defense is dead last in the Big 12 in scoring allowed at a staggering 79.4 points per game, which is 5 more than the next worst team in the league at Oklahoma State. They allow the most rebounds. They commit the most fouls. They send teams to the free throw line the most. And when they came to Hilton and we got to watch them play against us the first time, it didn't look like their game plan included anything resembling a coherent defense. Their defense looked more like, I don't know, flies on a honey bottle chasing the basketball around. I don't even have a good metaphor for it. Mice chasing a block of cheese? I don't know. There was nothing coherent about it. It didn't look like they'd practiced defense before it was so bad. So I think that's a game that, even with our difficulties lately, we still win this by a very considerable margin. And that springs us forward into the next week where we'll play Cincinnati and presumably have Milan back, and then things offensively should be back on the right track. Women's ball. Women's ball. The Twister sisters went 1-1 in the last week. They got the break speed off of them on Sunday at home against the ninth-ranked TCU Horned Frogs. The final score of that one was 82-69. I don't think anybody expected Iowa State to come out of this game winning or really even being particularly competitive. I remember leaving that game and my impression was, dang, TCU women are good at basketball.
They're good at basketball now.
They are. They're good at basketball.
They're good at basketball now thanks to you-know-who.
Yeah. Now, watching that game, though, in the places where we're usually commenting on our own defense collapsing, we actually weren't. Because TCU was making a lot of really hard shots. They were just falling. And their offensive execution was good. Their shooting form was really good. And I'm watching this game, and I'm like, what else are we supposed to do on defense? Like, TCU's just playing really good ball. They did an excellent job of creating shot opportunities. And when they didn't create shot opportunities, and our defense was all over them, they still made shots. They just could not be shut down. It didn't really seem to matter what we did. Because, I mean, we kind of threw the book at them and nothing really happened.
No, that'll happen.
The exception to that was we did successfully shut down Sedona Prince. I guess for the sake of putting this on the internet, I have to say alleged, but domestic abuser, who seemed to live up to the name by, scoring 0 points, but committing 5 fouls. And those 5 fouls came in just under 19 minutes of playing time. I don't think we'd even hit the fourth quarter yet, had we?
I think we were just a little bit into the fourth quarter.
It was either before the fourth quarter or before the under 5 timeout.
It was before the under 5 timeout in the fourth quarter, most definitely.
Gotcha.
As far as I can remember.
Yeah. So the student section certainly had a fun time with that.
Dude, they were loud when that happened too.
All of Hilton Coliseum was. I think they all knew exactly what was going on. On the other end of things, Iowa State didn't play a completely bad game. Our offense was more or less limited to 2 players, though. Addy Brown had a career high of 31 points. And Audi Crooks had 29 points. So that combines to 60 points.
60 out of the 69 points.
Yeah. So that was the biggest problem for Iowa State, was that the rest of the team scored a combined 9 points. There was just the rest of the team was just kind of inactive on offense.
Unfortunately.
And had we not been so inactive, maybe the game would have been a little bit closer. The way TCU was executing on offense, we were not going to win this game. But we could have made it at least look a little bit more competitive. And we also didn't make the game against Cincinnati look very competitive for completely different reasons, because we beat the tar out of them. We won that game by 20 points. The Twister sisters showed up for that one. We got good games from a couple different players on this one. Arianna Jackson, 17 points, 5 for 9 from the field. If we can get offense from her like that more often, we'll be in a good place. And then Kelsey Joens had another double figures game, 11 points, 50% from the field, 9 rebounds. I really hope that game is a confidence booster for Kelsey.
Yeah, 1 point away from a double-double, or 1 rebound away from a double-double.
Kelsey's got more talent than I think she gives herself credit for.
I know.
Because she can shoot well, but she's not always necessarily given the opportunities to take those shots. And she isn't one to necessarily drive the board to the hoop very much. She's not a slasher by any means. But she's aggressive on the boards, she's aggressive on defense, and she's a fantastic shooter. And she's hard to match up against because she's got a really good wingspan. So, seeing Kelsey have a good performing night like that, I hope that's a sign of more excellent play to come from Kels. And Cincinnati played equally bad as well as Kelsey did good, because Cincinnati went 29% from the field. Feels like we're talking about our men's offense. And they actually shot better from downtown than they did from inside the arc. A measly 32%. Yeah, that was actually better than their total shooting. It was a bad shooting night for Cincy. Yeah, I really do feel like I'm talking about our shooting against Kansas from the men's side. It really feels like that's the same kind of metrics right there. So Iowa State's next matchup on the women's side of the ball, that will be back at Hilton Coliseum. We will host Colorado. Which day is that?
It'll be tomorrow.
That's also tomorrow? Evening?
Yes. Yep, tomorrow after the TCU men's game.
Okay, so we have the TCU men's game, go stand outside in the student line for a little while and then jump right back in. Got it.
Clear.
When are we going to eat any meals?
You can bow down to Iowa State's Levy concession stands that are overpriced as heck.
That's expensive. I can order a whole Domino's pizza for what that costs. Please sponsor us for this, Domino's.
Have it be Domino's, not Papa John's.
Yeah. Now you really should sponsor us. But this game, Colorado is not a particularly great team, but one of the good things that Colorado has going for them is that they have Nia Du on their roster, who is a former Cyclone. But we obviously are not going to give Nia Du the same treatment that other former Cyclones like Danae Fritz get, because Nia is a grad transfer. So, she played her 4 years here. She was loyal. And when you go somewhere for grad school, obviously academics matter a lot in that case. You're not necessarily going to go to grad school the same place that you did your undergrad. So in this particular transfer case, no hard feelings whatsoever. I'm sure the crowd will have some good cheers for Nia Du.
Yeah, hopefully they'll welcome her back with open arms.
Yep.
Yeah, and you've said before, like with grad transfers, like leaving after their 4 years, like obviously, best wishes to them. Like they did what was asked, they stay for 4 years.
Yep. When you commit here as an undergrad, I want you to stay as an undergrad. If you're gonna go play as you're getting a grad transfer, cool. Nothing against that.
No,
I don't have.
And she was great. She was great for her time here too.
Yeah, reliable player, great contributor to the culture, good friend to her teammates. And I really hope that the players at Colorado are loving her just as much as the players at Iowa State did. And then, of course, tonight, we got some grappling action against Arizona State at Hilton Coliseum. Predictive metrics at WrestleStat have ISU winning this duel 30-7, so that's kind of the benchmark. Arizona State is usually a good wrestling team. They are on one heck of a down year this year. They are currently 4-6 and have only won a single Big 12 duel. Meanwhile, Iowa State's sitting at 8-4, so not a great year by our standards either. But we've also done worse, and considering like 8 of our starters are injured, we're fine. But it doesn't hurt when your backups can also get ranked. But a lot of ASU backups also appear to be on the card. But match by match here, 125. I think this might be the single easiest bout of the entire duel to chalk up. Second ranked Richard Figueroa is probably going to beat Perryman by fall. Which is, I'm less optimistic about that than the predictive metrics are. The predictive metrics have Figueroa only winning that by a decision. I'm not quite sure where they got that idea. But then we go down the rest of the list here, and we've got a string of what should be wins. Got Evan Frost over Julian Shabove. Jacob Frost over Emilio Yasaguri. I don't know how you pronounce that.
$10 if you could say his name right. Oh my god.
I don't know how you pronounce that, and it's not like they talk about him on Flow Wrestling Radio Live, so I've never actually heard his name pronounced before. I've got Paniro Johnson winning a ranked matchup against Jesse Vasquez. Cody Chittum winning against Michael Killick. Aiden Riggins. I've got that one as a coin flip bout against Giovanni Major or Arturo Anaya. The predictive metrics really like Riggins for this one, so I'm leaning toward a win there, but I'm still listing it as a coin flip because Riggins is not always the most consistent either. 174 we get MJ Gaitan against Joseph Manfredi. That should be a win. 184 Evan Bachman or Nando Villascusa against Shea Addison. I think that's going to be Bachman that wrestles that one. That should be a win. 197, it'll either be Nate Schoen or Tate Nakaboran against Jacob Meisner. I think regardless of who we wrestle in that one, it's a win. And then at heavyweight, Daniel Herrera is going to have to wrestle Colton Schultz. Colton Schultz has been around for a while. He's always top 10 guy. He's going to win this one. If we had Younger Bastida healthy, we would win at heavyweight, but I don't think Herrera is going to beat Schultz. So I think that at worst, we lose 3 bouts, and we basically run away with this one. Now, the one that I'm less convinced about, and I actually disagree with the predictive metrics on the outcome of this duel, is our upcoming duel against 15th ranked Pitt. They're sitting at 9-3. They're 2-1 in ACC play. WrestleStats got ISU winning this one 19-13. But the predictive metrics have Ethan Perryman and Aiden Riggins winning their matchups in this one. I do not. I've got Perryman against Nick Babin, who's 23rd ranked. I don't understand why the predictive metrics have Perryman winning this. They've wrestled each other before one time. Babin secured a first period fall against Perryman. So I don't really see a whole lot of reason to be optimistic about that one. Not sure what the metrics are seeing that I'm not. Evan Frost against Tyler Chappelle should be an easy win. Jacob Frost against Anthony Santaniello or Briar Priest. Either one of those matchups should be a win for Jacob Frost. Paniro Johnson against Finn Solomon or Cade Brown should be a win. Cody Chittum against Dylan Evans should be a win. And then this is the other one that I disagreed with the metrics on. Aiden Riggins against either Jared Kelzer or Kellen Laffey. The metrics have him wrestling against Kelzer. And have Riggins winning that one. I have Kelzer winning that one.
Why do you think so?
Riggins is inconsistent.
Think so.
And I feel like he has a tendency in these coin flip bouts. I'm just not confident. I think he does, to some extent, wrestle to the level of his competition. So he wrestles at his best when he's against the best opponents, but they still beat him. So against opponents who should be roughly on par with them, I still don't really trust him. If we go to 174, MJ Gaitan will be wrestling against Luca Augustine. I got MJ losing this one because they have wrestled twice already. And Augustine won both of them. The first one was a 5-4 decision. The second was a 6-4 decision. So they've been close both times. Gaitan could definitely win it. But I'm going to go with past history on this one. Augustine will take the win at 174. And then from here on out, I'm not real optimistic about anything. 184, I've got Evan Bachman losing to 13th ranked Reese Heller. I think it's also a very real possibility that Nando Villascusa takes this bout in order to try to keep Evan from getting another loss on his record. So this one might be a weight class that we duck. 197, whoever we throw in at 197 is going to have to go against 10th ranked Max Stout. I don't like our chances regardless of who we throw out there, so I think that one's an L. And then at heavyweight, Daniel Herrera against Dayton Pitzer is another one I am not optimistic about. I think Dayton Pitzer is going to win that one pretty solidly. So barring us getting a good amount of bonus points in some of these early bouts, if we get some good bonus points, if the Frost brothers can get some bonus points, if Pinheiro or Cody can get some bonus points, that'll help. That'll give us a fighting chance in this bout. But I think that Pitt probably wins this, even though the predictive metrics have us winning. But that is today's episode of the Cornfield Sports Pod. Make sure you give us a follow on Twitter at CSportsPod. Blake, where can they find you at?
As always, you can find me at BlakeAttack1846.
And you can find me at SFMattISU. Tap the follow button on Spotify, the plus button on Apple. We're also available on Amazon, CastBox, and Good Pods. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube and Rumble. Hit the little bell for notifications.
This has been Blake Peterson.
I'm Matt Menson, and this has been the Cornfield Sports Pod.